Welcome to Pay Attention, a podcast guiding you from the chaos of the mind to the clarity of the heart. Here's your host, Holly McNeill.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Pay Attention. It's a beautiful day to take a deep breath, sit back, and be mindful. It is really all about where you place your attention. So I'm excited today to get back to the idea of mindfulness, teaching mindfulness, and is mindfulness the same for everyone? And so we've got a great show for you. I have two guests today, and only one can get online right now, but hopefully the other one will by the end. But for right now, Christoph, welcome. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Holly. Hi, everyone. Lovely to be back. Thank you for having us.
Yes, thanks for joining. I see our second guest just showed up. We will see her at the end, Liezl. So Christoph and Liezl join me from far, far away. I'm in Southern California. You'll hear all about that when we get in the studio. But we will be in the background to answer any comments or questions that you might have. And we'll go from there. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Welcome to the studio. It's early morning here in Southern California, and I'm excited to talk to our guests today. We've had a great season so far. We've had people here on Less is More medically. We've talked about the mind-body connection. We've talked about, lucid dreaming, different ways to find your way. And today I want to get back to the basics of mindfulness. It's such a buzzword these days, and so I want to get into what it is and what it isn't, and maybe, one size doesn't fit all. So today I'm super excited, and the reason I'm up so early today is because I have two guests from Manchester, England. Welcome, Christoph Spiessens and Liezl Laidlaw.
We're very happy to be here.
Delighted.
Was that a no? I did not. Christoph, why don't you introduce yourself? Give us a minute or two of who you are and how to pronounce your name correctly, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Holly. Hi, everyone. I am Christoph Spiessens. I am from Belgium originally, but I am based in Manchester in the United Kingdom, where I host the annual Manchester Mindfulness Festival. I am a mindfulness teacher and supervisor, and I am very happy to have an opportunity to chat with Holly and Liezl today about making mindfulness more accessible, especially to our neurodivergent participants. So thanks again.
Yes. And what I saw Christoph on LinkedIn, and the Manchester Mindfulness Festival really caught my attention. And so when I reached out to you, you said you have this lovely partner, Liezl. Welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into, exactly the neurodivergency and how mindfulness can help everyone if we're paying attention to how it's used and how it's taught and so forth. So please, Liezl.
Great, thank you. I'm Liezl Laidlaw, and I am a CBT therapist who works mostly with neurodivergent clients, particularly ADHDers. I'm also a mindfulness teacher, and my business is called Rewire Therapy. And Christoph and I actually met on LinkedIn when I was being a little bit cheeky to him about saying how he had learned so much about neurodivergent participants. And I said, I'd be very interested to hear about what you've learned. And by the way, nothing about us without us. And that's how the two of us started speaking and connected around how to be more neuro-inclusive in mindfulness teaching. And so that's where we started.
Yeah, wonderful. I'm really excited to bring that to the audience today, because there's many people out there that fit that description. So mindfulness, moment to moment, non-judgmental but curious awareness, it's kind of the basic description. But what would you say to people when we talk about, perhaps, and I'm guessing I'll title this episode, one size doesn't fit all. So you already kind of talked about your interests, but what does it mean? What does mindfulness mean for people, for neurodivergent people, I guess?
Okay. Well, Christoph, do you want to
a...
go first with your experience, and maybe I can throw in something after?
You see, I don't know what it means to neurodivergent people, because
Okay.
it is one thing that I have learned working with Liezl and neurodivergent participants is to not pretend that I know or make assumptions. So my genuine answer to your question would be I don't know. I do, however, taking a step back and being a little bit more gentle on myself here, is that from my experience, listening to neurodivergent participants of my courses, and actually, as I came to understand my own experience as well, is that mindfulness is not always as accessible and inclusive as it is claimed to be. Yeah.
Okay.
So mindfulness is inherently and integrally inclusive, but when it comes down to it may not be. And so that's what Liezl and I take a look at, like how can we make it more inclusive and accessible.
So why would it not be inclusive? I mean, it's the way it's paying attention, it's getting familiar with your mind, and what would make it, what makes it less inclusive?
So it might be helpful to frame it for the purposes of your audience and this podcast is when we say it is not accessible, it is not exclusive, what we're comparing it against is conventional mainstream mindfulness 8-week courses. Yeah, because mindfulness an sich is, in my opinion, very inclusive and accessible. But again, that is my understanding and experience of it, because I've learned to access it in my way. But there is no one size fits all, and that's what we're here to chat about. So, Liezl, I don't know if you wanted to add something.
Yeah, Liezl, I mean, I have ADHD in my family, and so and I practice mindfulness, but I imagine it's a personal experience for everyone.
Yes, that's the key. Mindfulness, the key idea is a way to find a way into yourself, into your own experience without judging it. That's it, right? But how that looks is very different from person to person. And if we assume that everyone's the same, then we're excluding people. We're ignoring differences, and then we're actually not allowing people in. And so for someone who is an ADHDer, my apologies, it may be difficult to sit still for more than a few minutes or at all. And so for someone who's an ADHDer like myself, movement may be well important for being able to find a way into your body safely. However, if we learned our mindfulness in a course where everyone's sitting cross-legged or sitting on a chair, and people actually feel irritated at your movements because they're not understanding the purpose of it, that might feel like you are being rejected. And the chances of making it through a full 8-week course of doing that are slim, unless you're as determined as I was. Let's say I was like a dog with a bone. I was not about to let go of this idea that I needed some peace in my head. And we all know that mindfulness is not about getting peace in your head, but I was having such a busy head that I needed to try something. And so that's how I started to learn what worked for me and what didn't. And I had to do it sort of to myself, as opposed to telling my teacher, see, when you make us sit for 10 minutes, I can't sit for 10 minutes. So I had to find ways to sit and fidget to allow myself to be in the one place. But that was my experience. For other people, that might not be something that they want to do. That might not be something that's accessible to them. And perhaps unless they actually get up and walk about, they're not going to manage it. So it's like Christoph says, it's not one size fits all. We need to find our own way for it. And as we learn about ourselves and our participants, if we're a teacher, we learn some ways that we can maybe suggest, or we can ask our participants what works for them if they already know. But no, it's, just because everybody's sitting still doesn't mean we should.
And that brings up an excellent point. I mean, mindfulness, meditation, right? There's many ways for meditation and mindfulness. I mean, the mainstream is, of course, to sit in the quiet.
Mm-hmm.
But even my own journey of finding my way did not start that way. I mean, I would find moments right before I drifted off to bed, and my practice is 1 minute, 6 times a day. Just do get those little inroads that you
Mm-hmm.
can. So you're absolutely right. The whole idea of mindfulness in general is much more. I guess there's less teachings on different ways to do it, which is what the two of you now have developed. Correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And we are not the only people doing it. There are wonderful people out there, and it's really important to state that we just have some momentum going. But yes, we're not the only ones in the field, and we borrow greatly from people who are doing the research and the deep work. But we sort of take it to the front line, so to speak.
Of course. I love that. I love the energy coming through, and the fact that it's not about who gets to the finish line. It's about offering opportunities for everyone to develop that peace and clarity.
And there's a real
Right.
urgency that we both feel, and I
Okay.
think that's one of the things that inspires us, because courses are happening, 8-week courses are happening. All sorts of mindfulness initiatives are taking place every day all around the world, and with that comes the fact that many people are being excluded or are failing at some of the practices, as Liezl was, or the how of the practices, as Liezl was describing, which then drives shame, for example, and that's the last thing that you want your participants to experience.
Of course.
So that's why there's an urgency, because we want to support not just teachers, but also people who might be listening to your podcast. And
There is an urgency, in the world in general. So I'm one of the big ones is the 8 weeks mindfulness-based stress reduction course out of UMass, and something I participated in earlier on. But what would some of these kind of trauma-informed affirming practices look like if something like that 8-week course sitting in the stillness doesn't work for someone?
There's a good, oh gosh, this PDF we've been talking about has about 100 tips. So I'm feeling urgency to pick the best ones. But how about we start off with, how am I going to know what's going to be best for my participants? Because if I just fling out a whole pile of tips for you, you're not going to know how to apply that. And so part of the first part of our 7-spoke approach to these tips is to start. I'm going to quote The Sound of Music at the very beginning, and where we have to recognize that our language that we're using to promote the course that we're about to do has to be inclusive. It has to demonstrate to the reader or the listener that they're going to be safe with this teacher. And so that means using the language appropriately. So not confusing neurodiverse for neurodivergent, for example. Neurodiverse meaning the whole population is neurodiverse. There's a variety of neurotypes in this population, neurodiverse. Whereas one person is neurodivergent because it means they diverge from what is seen as the cultural norm. That's a statistical thing. And it doesn't necessarily mean that we're the majority or the minority. It just means we are not part of that narrow view of what is standard. And that is a cultural thing.
The narrow view, yeah. And we talked about this, Liezl, before we even got on. I mean, how to even say it appropriately isn't exactly well known here. So your work and your program that you developed is based towards teachers teaching mindfulness to neurodivergent people, and so the teacher, him or her, themselves may not necessarily have or know or be whatever in that norm, or may have some neurodivergency, if I'm saying right, themselves. But your goal then is to get tips out there so that people can address just not that narrow view of what normalcy looks like?
Yeah, we want everyone to be able to take part. And whether that is, whether the difference that they are themselves is to do with being neurodivergent, whether it's to do with a racial background that maybe isn't so well supported in standard, in inverted commas, mindfulness, whether it's some other identity informer that means that they might be excluded. That's all part of being inclusive. The only thing that Christoph's and I's document offers detail on is about neurodivergent participants, but we need to recognize that all these other identities really make a difference to whether people feel safe.
Yeah, feeling safe. I was going to say there's a lot. I mean, the whole reason people go to mindfulness, the whole reason they go to find that clarity is because their own feelings of insecurity. I mean, there's a majority, I would say a majority of the people would fit into that category of not being in the normal category. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, totally. It's a statistical thing, and if you were looking at normal as a statistical term, it assumes a far larger proportion of people than would actually be classed as normal if you're looking at what all the diagnostic terms are. So, it's a bit of a mishmash, isn't it?
Right. So if you're out there, and I mean, your work focuses more towards teachers, but if you're out there listening today and people are identifying this, what are some things other than sitting and just listening that you can do to find that inroad into the understanding of who you are and what lens you might be seeing life through?
I'm going to let Christoph take this one because I've been gabbing on.
Well, I noticed that my mind is sort of linking this question with the previous question, and this give us an example of what does it look like, and I'm going to stick with I'm going to go with what does it look like. Do you know some of the practices like a mountain meditation or a lake meditation, or some of the more didactic components where the teacher is asking you to imagine you're walking down the street and you see somebody and you wave at them and they don't wave back, and then the whole thing that happens. There are many people, as it turns out, who, and I didn't know this until about a year and a half ago, which is part of why we're here. There are many people who can't visualize something that I, as a teacher, think is pretty straightforward. Think of a mountain. Think of a lake, think of your friend. It was positively shocking to me to discover that there are some people who cannot visualize their own children. So so the aphantasia neurotype, if we expect somebody to just follow us, follow the guidance, here we go, find a posture, think of this person, think of whatever, we lose them in that moment. And in that moment, there's a disconnect, and that can then, drive the shame and disappointment and feelings of failure and being not good enough, etc., etc. Thinking poorly of mindfulness. I knew it was going to work for me. I know it's a lot of nonsense. So, whereas there are wonderful ways of presenting a practice, a piece of teaching in a different way that can help people connect with it. For example, stick with the visualization or the challenge around, or the inability to visualize. Maybe that person can connect with a feeling that is linked to their kids or a friend or a holiday in the mountains or whatever. So there are different ways of connecting with what the teacher believes to be a picture of something, an image. There's so much more to this, Holly, that we would love to say that.
It seems to me like it's really about approaching mindfulness for yourself and also teaching mindfulness, as you started out this conversation, or maybe even before the conversation, with kindness, right? And understanding that the goal of the teacher is to provide those pointers to people. But to some degree, obviously, to probably a big degree, they don't know who is necessarily in their class.
Yeah.
So
That's an excellent point.
how do you address that?
Yeah. Well, not only do the teachers not know who's necessarily in their class, not everyone in the class knows if they're neurodivergent or not. It's only since in the UK, certainly since 2008, that you could get diagnosed as an adult with ADHD. And since 2013, that most adults started getting their neurodivergent diagnosis in the UK. So it's a fairly recent thing, which means the vast majority of adults who have a diagnosis now were diagnosed late in life, which means that there's a big old gap when they didn't know. And if
Yes.
they happen to turn up in your mindfulness class not knowing, they can't say, oh, by the way, I'm this flavor of neurodivergent and therefore I need X, Y, Z, and I need you to address these kind of obstacles for me. So it lands on the teacher to prepare themselves with different options, like a little menu of things people can choose from, so they can try it out, because they're not going to know if they need to try it out or not until you offer it.
Right. So,
And interestingly, I'm just going to jump on this for a moment, because interestingly, it can also reveal things for the teacher that they weren't aware of. So in doing this work with Liezl and working through some of my own ignorance, to use a mindfulness word, right? I have discovered that, so I've always struggled with the body scan, for example. And I've discovered reasons, trauma-rooted reasons why that might be the case. And so I've had to find different ways of practicing the body scan. And now it's become one of my favorite practices, because it's shorter, it's in the moment, it's more creative. It allows me to be more me with the whole thing. And that's really important, that it can not only be helpful for the participant, but also for the teachers, because risk is perhaps a big word, but it can be really discombobulating when you think you're trained in something and you're trained well in it, and then that rug is pulled from underneath you. That's a metaphor. So there's insecurity, which can actually stop you from wanting to teach. It can undermine your confidence, and that's sad, right? So it's helpful for everyone to have more awareness of all of this.
I think the underlying message, at least for this podcast and for the listeners out there, is that, if something isn't working for you in your mindfulness practice or in your mindfulness teaching, certainly you're not alone. And that this is something that the urgency that the two of you are talking about, and that ignorance, right, is something that can be, some light can be shown on that. If something doesn't work as a teacher or a student, don't give up. You're not in the minority. Perhaps try something new. Right?
Yeah, the whole ethos of what we're doing here is to give teachers and participants autonomy over what they do. If it doesn't work for you, if you can't find a way in the way that you're doing it right now, it's okay to find your own way. It's okay to say, do you know, that doesn't work. I'm going to try it this way. And I have permission, because this is my body and my experience. And so other people can't actually tell me how to do this. If I find something that works, I can share it with other people, and they can try it out for themselves if they want to. But if it doesn't work for me, I'm going to try something else. And so we're offering people their own permission.
I love that. It's definitely, it's on my journey, it's been like, okay, in the back of my mind, it's like, I'm not doing this like normally everyone else is doing it, but it seems to be working. So I'm just going to keep doing it that way.
Yeah.
And then finally, I do now teach about, those moments right before you go to sleep and right when you wake up. So yeah, excellent work the two of you are doing. So if somebody's listening to this right now and they've tried mindfulness, or what's something they can do right now besides giving themselves understanding and kindness? What's a tip that you can leave them with, or where should they go to maybe try some of these different ways, different inroads?
Christoph, do you want to do some breath support things? Do you feel like that might be a useful thing, since most people try with breath at least once?
and how the breath can also be such a challenge for many people. You know?
You're right. There's so many things we can talk about because the breath
Yeah.
is the anchor of so many teachings, and people are like, "What are you even talking about?"
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I'm being asked the question, so I'm going to answer it
Yeah.
from my perspective, right? I think what is sorely missing from a lot of, and I want to be very respectful because it is all there, but if you know where to go and find it, and when you're new to mindfulness, one is probably not so likely to know what you're looking for, let alone know where to find it, is this whole, what is it in the service of? Why are we even practicing mindfulness? And if it becomes such a, I don't know if this is the right word, but a mechanistical thing, like these are the practices, this is the set of things that you have to become good at. How deflating does that even sound? I mean, whereas if you know why mindfulness and how it fits into flourishing in life, for example, understanding and navigating suffering, not just our own, but as a society, as a community, not just about feeling better, but about being better as a person, as a community. Personally, and I feel very strongly about this, which is why I always try to sort of worm it into any moment opportunity I get, is it can be super helpful because it's often forgotten, at least in my opinion, and it becomes a series of techniques, and that can become really boring and deflating. Whereas when you remember your why, then the motivation is always there in a way that works for you. So I'll come off my soapbox and hand over
well
to
done.
Liezl.
You did it. So let me give you a tip, because Christoph would like to tell us about tips, but he needs to tell us politics first, and that's okay. It's important. It matters.
Quickly before you give the tip, that's really excellent, because when I hit a really super low point, and when it's now being recognized as a quarter life crisis, I had no idea how to get out of it. I had zero idea, but I had a belief there was better. And I just kept, believing that and moving towards in the direction of that belief. And then, the path, step on the path, and the path will appear. So
that's
exactly.
it. Yeah,
exactly.
So it really matters understanding that, the framing that Christoph's has given us really matters, because that is what drives us throughout all of this. The practical detail of it, it can include something like, if you struggle to bring your attention back to the breath, you don't even have to struggle, you might just enjoy what I'm about to tell you. You can do something like, for those who can see us on camera, I'm going to bring my hand up like in the shape of a chef's kiss, fingers all together. When you breathe in, you can open your fingers like a lotus, breathing in, and breathing out, you close them again.
Lovely.
And what that's doing is it's combining movement and an internal experience of the body moving with the breath without having to use this abstract idea of putting our awareness on the breath. What? Where? How?
Yeah, that's lovely, right? What it's also doing then is bringing you, of course, back to the present moment.
It gives you a visual thing to look at. I mean, who doesn't want that, right?
Yeah, beautiful.
So that's just one thing. Another thing might be, okay, so we're all suggesting everybody sits. Well, no, that's not everybody sit. If you want to stand, stand. If you want to lie down, lie down. Pick a posture that's right for your body right now. And it won't be the same posture every time. Maybe when you stand up, you want to sway. Maybe you want to sway to the left for the in breath and sway to the right for the out. And that's okay. It's your body. You get to do it. That's just the breath. There's a whole pile of others, but
Yes, and we could keep talking about these forever, but those are excellent examples. The two of you have developed a whole program on this. So tell us a little bit about that, where they find you, where they find your work.
Thank you, Holly. So yes, we have created a very useful resource called Neurodiversity Tips for Mindfulness Teachers. Don't be put off if you're not by the title, if you're not a mindfulness teacher, because as you very helpfully hinted at, Holly, it can be a helpful document to explore different ways of accessing mindfulness, and maybe, who knows, discover something about your own neurotype or neurotypes in the process.
Yeah.
It is about 70 pages, 70, with just over 100 tips, very practical, very accessible, easy to integrate into one's teaching or practice. And it is available from our website, which I'm sure might be a link in the show notes or something.
Yeah, we
like
can
that.
put it up on screen, sure.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Wow. And you're right. And you know, there are a lot of mindfulness teachers out there, but your document could be helpful. I mean, even just, in the discussion today, it really feels, a lot more available to people just in this short discussion. So thank you both.
So we've got that
Thank
document.
you. Thank you. That's actually a really nice way of framing it. The word available, really, I resonated strongly with that, because it can feel, I'm just going to use the words how it felt for me a year and a half ago. It can feel really scary. There's me versus the neurodivergent participant, and oh my goodness, and the availability works both ways. It really isn't scary at all.
Yeah,
with awareness.
Yeah, with awareness, exactly. With paying attention, we are all humans. We're on this human journey. We're wanting peace and clarity and connection.
That's where we're all the same. Exactly, like there is where we're all the same. And I wanted to say that the PDF document is the most accessible way of doing this, but Christoph and I also offer workshops for mindfulness teachers. And so we can either organize that for your organization, or we can do one directly through the two of us. So if people are interested in that, we can help out with that. But yeah, the document is the most accessible way of doing it. Everyone can download that, and most people can come up with the cost of it. And there's so much detail in there that is very practical.
Great. Well, thank you both for coming on today. So early in my morning and so late in your afternoon. we talked about how I was just getting started and you guys are just winding down, but it all came together. So thank you both for your work and for helping people see that there's many, many ways to find that clarity.
Thank you, Holly. Loved being here.
Total pleasure. And thanks everyone listening or watching. Bye now.
Yeah. Back to live. All right. We have been having technical difficulties getting Liezl in. So we were hoping she'd be here at the end. I don't know if she'll pop back in or not, but thank you, Christoph and Liezl, for your work. Christoph, one of the things I was thinking as I was watching this is that, we talked about there's no right or wrong way. And the whole point of this is to become familiar with your mind. So often we're on autopilot and we don't even know what drives our decisions. And so mindfulness meditation itself is all about that familiarity. And so it is definitely your reason, your way of becoming familiar with your mind. So.
Agree, Holly. And I think if there is a right way, it would be the way of safety.
Yeah.
Watching the recording again, it was like that word is really key, isn't it? Establishing safety. So.
Yeah, you talked about where people will lose interest, they will feel shame, right? There should be no shame in this. There is no win or lose. There's only getting to know who you are with kindness and understanding and safety. Yeah. So it sounds like your work is that you're getting more and more opportunities to talk about this, at least in the UK. So tell us about kind of what you have upcoming, what the two of you have upcoming, and what's next?
Yes, there is, and it's really exciting, and it feels good. It feels wholesome, and it's our pebble in the mindfulness pond. It's our contribution, really. And yes, we have been engaged in speaking opportunities in the US,
wonderful.
In the UK, of course, but also mainland Europe coming up. So very happy. And I noticed
Liezl
on my
isn't.
screen that Liezl is here. Exactly.
Yeah, she's in the studio. I don't know if we can pull up the other screen. If I can get my producer to pull up the other screen, we can see if we can bring her on for a moment.
And also to acknowledge Michelle's message in the chat.
Yes, I was going to get to the comments. Yeah, thank you, Michelle, for the comment. Offering alternatives. Let's see. Michelle K. I give alternative options for anchor postures, etc., for students depending on practice, space, and individuals. So
absolutely key. And to explain what an anchor is, for example, before you drop it in, during the guidance, because then that might make people shift into sort of thinking mode. Whereas when they know beforehand and they can make choices beforehand and in the moment as well, it's easier.
So how would you explain the anchor? Kind of the basic, a
helpful focal point to return to every time the mind wanders, which we know it will do. It's not if, but when. And it can be an interoceptive anchor, like the breath, the feet on the floor, whatever. It can be an exteroceptive, external bird song or a visual image of something.
But whatever works for you. So thank you, Michelle, for your comment. And ultimately, again, from my notes, it is, I think Liezl said this, that it's your body, your experience. So give yourself permission to find your way home in whatever way you can. There's no judging. The only one judging is you when you're doing this on the inside, the only one judging is you. So, release that judgment and so wonderful work you're both doing. Again, I'm sorry we couldn't get Liezl on screen. It sounds like you guys make a great pair in getting this work out there. Good luck moving forward, and thank you again.
And thank you, Holly, for helping us with this, because we can only do it in part because we get opportunities like this to share the work. So thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. And when I saw you on LinkedIn and your work, it really connected. So I'm glad you could show up, or you could show up. We could show up. We showed up for each other today. So thank you.
And Liezl is here as well. I don't know if you can.
Yes, I know she's in the background. I know. Yes, I guess it's spring break, and she's at some camp with her daughter, and the internet is very shaky. So, anyway, she's here. We can see her. She's here in spirit. You saw her in the recording.
And there are other podcasts with us on YouTube in case people do want to see Liezl and see a visual image of Liezl. It's available.
Okay. All right. Great. Yeah. So thank you, listeners, for coming. This next week, we're going to have Astra, a young lady from, again, across the seas who really is doing what she can to get this information out there. So I'm excited to kind of to round out this part of season 2 with Astra next week. Thanks again to Christoph and Liezl and everyone for listening. And so as you go throughout your day, remember that your mindfulness, your mind is your own. Be safe, be kind, and pay attention. Thank you.
Thanks for watching Pay Attention with Holly McNeill. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. See you next week on Wednesday at 10 o'clock Pacific, 1 o'clock Eastern.